Hi, welcome back to the studio and to another sketchbook prompt tutorial. Today we are working on number 9, geometric landscape, sketching a landscape using only geometric shapes. This is super fun, super easy, and I hope it will just free you up. You can just hang out with me and enjoy working in your sketchbook. And this kind of very freeing, very few rules kind of exercise really helps me creatively, helps me break through barriers, helps me continue my art practice, because we are here to just show up and practice. And hopefully it sparks a whole bunch of other ideas for you that you can do in your sketchbook. We are using the beginner sketchbook prompts list, which is free on my website, daunting.us. And there are 14 prompts in total. Some of these prompts have 2 tutorial videos along with them. Every tutorial video is free on my YouTube channel. And there are additional tutorials, video tutorials, for every one of these prompts on my Patreon, Jessie Art Studio. So head over there if you want even more tutorials or you want to hang out with me longer while you work in your sketchbook. Let's jump in. All right, for today's tutorial, I thought I would jump down from the giant sketchbook, boom, to a small moleskin. This is the, I think it's 5.5 by 8 or something like that. It's a perfect travel size, and you can do today's exercise with the regular pencils, eraser, sharpener, that set that we kind of showed at the very beginning of this whole series. Very simple set, nothing fancy. You can do any of these exercises with just a regular 2B pencil or any art pencils that you have. But for today, I thought it would be really fun to give you some color options. So color option number 1 is, if you have them, to use watercolor colored pencils. And it doesn't matter what set you have. We're doing nothing fancy. This is the Prismacolor watercolor set, and it's not a humongous set, but I do have a range of colors here that I can use. It didn't come with this wonderful pencil case, but I really do love this. It's supposed to sit up flat. It's not doing that right now, but that's one option for color, because we can draw in all the shapes and then we can use a bit of water and activate the drawn line, which could create a pretty beautiful effect. Another option would be to draw with pen, or maybe pencil and then pen, and play with markers. You can use literally anything. You could use Crayola markers if you had it. These are art markers. They're not very expensive. They're from Michael's Artist Loft. And the set that I have it's called Landscape, so it would be kind of well suited for this perhaps. But yeah, you have some options in terms of materials when it comes to this little exercise. I'm going to turn to maybe second page in, because on the first couple pages I like to do a little drawing of supplies. And I think I'm going to work vertically today. And I also am going to zoom in a little so you're a little bit closer, because we are working a bit smaller. And I have a little photo reference I'm going to pop right here that I'm going to use for this. And I think it's a pretty basic drawing, so I don't think I'm going to need a lot of like prep drawing done in pencil. But if you're nervous about making wrong lines or something like that, you're nervous you're going to make a mistake, it's sometimes kind of freeing just to use that graphite pencil so you can erase it. I'm using a lilac color because it's really light, but I can still kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to mark the horizon right here. So it's kind of nice, especially with this image, to show where the highest part of that visible path will be. And it's off to the right a little bit as well. And remember, we're trying to turn all of these regular landscape things into shapes. So I'm actually truly going to work to simplify everything into shapes. And when I say geometric shapes, it doesn't have to be like triangle, square, circle, rectangle. That's it. This is a rectangle, but you can see it's like bigger on this side. So it's still a geometric shape, right? The difference between shape and form now, that would be form being 3-dimensional, shape being 2-dimensional. So something to keep in mind when we're saying shape, we do mean these 2-dimensional shapes versus form, which would be like a cube versus shape. So shape is a square, form is a cube. So I'm starting at the kind of area of interest here, and I'm gonna have to, I wanna make some rough guides for myself. This is gonna be like where the foliage is, and then that means I can fill this whole area with lines of the tree trunks. And this is the path leading up to kind of the hill. It starts to kind of go back out here as it gets closer to us. And I'm gonna change the angle to go out even bigger here. And then that kind of gives me a guide. I need to put in the grass here, and then I'll have a guide of where my trees are. So coming down the side here, I'm making everything a little, get a little wider and larger as it gets closer to me. It's basic perspective. We are just fudging it, but you can see that this little area is a lot smaller than the area up here. And then same thing goes for this. Notice it's thinner down there and wider up here because I'm trying to kind of have it make sense with linear perspective. Let me block in a couple of shadow shapes. I'm going to make this a shadow. I'm going to make this a triangle at the bottom here to kind of signify like the bottom of a tree trunk. And then I'm going to do some little additional shapes here to be rocks. So this one is kind of resembling a parallelogram, and then same with this one, just a different angle. And I kind of want them to see how like this is the bottom of that far tree, and then the bottom of the next tree's forward and stuff, and so on. This is kind of agreeing with perspective. The bases are kind of laddering over here, and also they're getting a little bit wider as they get closer to us, and you know why. But if we don't want them to all be perfectly the same width or the same spacing, we can make a couple lines that are closer together for variety. I'm going to do a couple more triangles over here to show, or not triangles, but maybe like a couple lines to show where I'm going to do shadow. I do shadow in here, and a couple triangles back there to show some shadow, just so it's not straight lines. I want something jutting out here every now and then. An interesting part of this drawing is that there is light and shadow on the path. I think that's one of the prettiest parts of this image, so I'm going to try to show that. Here is shadow, shadow, and then this area is going to be light. And let's do a big streak of light, and we'll slant it up. And that's going to be in light. On this side, we want some trees as well. And I'm going to have the angle be a bit different of the foliage. It's going to come out like that. I need a little bit more space for grass. And then we're gonna go have fun with a bunch of rocks. Half circle, we could do a half circle. Yeah, I like that. This is like a half hexagon. I like it better than the half circle, but I'm gonna keep it in there for a variety. I think it looks a little wonky. But how are we gonna know what things look like unless we play around a little? I'm going to make this, this is part of the tree's roots kind of coming out here. And I want some more rocks back here. More than half circle time. Pop in a rectangle back there. Bunch of rocks. Triangle. Why not? Why not? Let's be wild. Okay. So at what point, so the bottom of these trees are blocked by the rocks. It's cool. And at what point do we want the big tree? I think it needs to come out of here. And it's going to go all the way up to the top. And I'm going to bring another tree that's right here beside it up higher as well. Now, to make trees look good, they're supposed to like splay out and everything. And here I am being extremely geometric and straight and everything with mine. That's okay. I'm gonna put some triangles, and that's a triangle. Parallelogram. Let's do another triangle here. Only a different angle one. So these are my branches. I kind of like what's happening. This is not how I would normally draw, right? So we're breaking through creatively. This is a branch coming from a tree over there, but yet it's going to look just like another triangle on this side. So now I'm drawing line more than shape, right? But these are all geometric shapes. To technically be a shape, I think they have to be closed off, but that's not really what I'm worried about. I'm more just worried about, see, that's not a shape, right? It's a line, but maybe we can close it off this way, as if a branch grew out this way and then grew down. Oh, I like that. Same with down here, there's a branch coming up like this. If I just leave it like that, it's a line, but I don't see why I couldn't close it off like that. So there's just these like shapes hanging off of a bigger shape. And I could make that 3D too. Or not 3D, but like I could make it more than just this whole banner. I could actually make it like a small rectangle. I like that. Okay, here's another tree over here. That one I feel like I don't want to even have the edge of. I think I just need to do the edge of the page or the edge of the drawing. So I'm going to create a border. I'm just freehanding all this. It's not supposed to be perfect. There's a lot of shadow down here, and so I'm going to do triangle, and then I'm going to break in some lines. It looks like a little book. Going to start. Ooh, I know what I'm going to do. Okay. Let me close this off here. Close off this area, and then how do I want to do this down here? I could just do a couple of slanted lines closing off this area. That's all just foliage. I want to add a little bit more detail. We've got branches coming in the top here. So I'm going to just make some shapes. What's now happening that I wasn't anticipating or planning on was shapes could be transparent over top of other ones. That's not something I planned on. That is something that is creatively happening because I'm letting go and just playing and doing an exercise. So initially I thought I would have every single shape be on its own, nothing overlapping, right? Like just individual shapes, almost like it was made up like a puzzle. I don't know if you had this in math class where you got all the plastic shapes and you had to kind of fit them together within a rectangle. I mean, that's a regular puzzle as well, but they were all actual shapes, like we were learning geometric shapes. That's kind of the vibe that I was going for. But now I've started overlapping shapes, which is really interesting. This right in here, this little middle area, is a gap between trees, and I want to emphasize that by layering in a couple more branches. This one branch is creating a bit of a triangle, so I'm going to just emphasize that back there. And gonna do that and that. So now we've got some crazy stuff happening. And there's still even some little branches down there. So I think that's quite beautiful, and it breaks up this monotony of all the vertical. There's still more layering I can do, and I feel like I should change colors to show you, like, this is the basic setup and now we're gonna layer on top. I think I'm gonna pick something warm. Pick this warmer purple. It's called Mulberry. Now I'm going to make some more shapes on top of these that are delineating shadows, because that sounds like fun to me. So all of this area is shadow. So I'm making basically shapes on top of the shapes I already have. So the rocks now get their own shapes within them, their own shadow shapes. And so do the trees back here too. The base of all these trees have shadows, and then some of these entire trees are in shadow, so I'm going to do that. Next, there's another shadow tree down here too. And so I'm just plopping in the dark where I see it. Again, remembering that we were going to make several of these in shadow and several in light. Now there's some shapes on top here of shadow. Parallelogram there, kind of looks cool. The sides are also in shadow. These rocks have their own shadows on them. And this whole area is in shadow, but there's like even darker spots too. So I'm gonna do that. I don't want to flatten this area. I want to keep it looking sloped a little bit. So that's what I'm gonna do. Little line in here. These are dark up here. Should we switch color though? I think it might be nice to change out our colors, not keep them all the same the whole way through. Let me just make sure I've got all the little shadow shapes I need down here. I think there's another one in here. And definitely some happy triangles in here. Yes, happy. They're very happy. Getting a little elaborate here, but it's bark and we're allowed to have fun. On the trees, I'm gonna add a couple more in here on this tree back here, because I think I'm gonna switch color for up here. If you want, you could do a little like swatchy situation on the left to see if you like the combo or if it grosses you out. Yellow and purple are opposite on the color wheel, so that might be beautiful. Ooh, gold and purple, yes, that's what's happening next. However, I think I'd like to stay to the yellow being the foliage, kind of going really truly like off of this reference image. So yeah, I'm going to use green for all the stuff up here and then yellow, and I think that'll be a nice combo instead of purple right against yellow. You'll see more, you'll understand more as I go what I mean. I think sometimes with these you can't sharpen them too much or they'll start breaking because they're really soft. Let's do this whole branch. So I'm not like quote unquote making sense, like all the branches or all the, you know, trees, bark, wood, they're all purple, and so it would make sense to continue along with purple, but I am urging you not to necessarily like formulaically make a whole lot of sense. Like just shift when you need to shift, see what that does, and let go of control. I think you'll surprise yourself more if you let go of some of the rules you're probably already setting for yourself. If you make a horrible mess, you did not fail. So this is kind of a little bit mindless. I'm just outlining certain shapes that I think fit my idea of like keeping balance and having things kind of blend well. And I mean blend loosely. Obviously we're not blending these colors, but to have only purple here and only yellow here, like I'm just trying to create a bit of some unity, I guess you could say. So I'm going to put some green down here. So sprinkling a little bit of green down here should create some balance, and I think that's exactly what it's doing. I feel like I want a couple little green shapes over here, almost like it's shadow on the bark like this, only it's lighter. There's more light hitting it. I've got my gold ready, and I'm going to make shapes within all of the foliage areas of gold and maybe even a little bit of orange. I think they'll look beautiful together. If I'm not sure, again, we could test it out over here. My brain works dark to light, so I'm gonna do some, and I want the orange to be selective, like not everywhere. So that's the one I'm gonna start with. And I'm gonna do these shapes coming out of the trees, willy-nilly. I'm also gonna do some shapes that are just seem to be floating, because I don't know, it seems like some of these should be attached and others should create a sense of like movement, floating. Also, I love diamonds. Why not? Why not? We've got a lot of orange back here. This is going to serve more as like a background, the way we're using the orange over here. I know I said I'd use it sparingly and then I'm just dropping it everywhere, but I'm going with the flow. Let's use it here. You might be wondering, like, how do I know what shapes to make? I don't know what shapes to make. I'm just looking at the reference and saying, I don't know, and not overanalyzing it. Like if I was being really particular, I would say, oh, maybe there's a circle over here, maybe there's an oval, but I have kind of stayed away from those shapes and I don't know if they'd really fit in really well. We could try a few. Let's try a few. But rather than really identify exactly, like breaking down all the lights and shadows in here and figuring out where I need to make the shapes, instead I'm just picking ones that just feel right, honestly. And you might have a sense like that yours is not balanced, or there's some effect that you don't want that's happening. That's all just knowledge. That's all just good learning, and you don't have to perfectly understand why you don't like it at first. Just keep practicing, and honestly, this stuff gets easier and easier. You'll get to know, you can analyze it later with a fresh view, why you didn't like certain parts. Ooh, let's put orange in here. Yeah, you can analyze later why you may or may not like certain areas of your own, and that's totally fine. Ooh, this is the light. This is the shadow. There's a lot of orange in the shadow, surprisingly. And on the sides. Right now I'm kind of holding back on judging whether I quote unquote like mine or not. I am like judging a certain amount. That's part of how we make art. So I'm thinking about, does this look balanced? No, it doesn't. I think I should add more over here. But I'm trying to refrain from judging like good or bad, because I haven't done this a lot, right? It's kind of new. Does it feel good to have shapes that are touching others and all fitting in and enclosed, or does it feel better to have some that are floaters? Ask yourself these things. I made up a lot of these exercises because I wanted to test them out myself. I wanted your company and your input, what you feel about them, because we might be onto something pretty cool here. My brain goes to cubism, which I'm sure yours does too, which isn't exactly what we're doing, but one other thing that I am going to do before I activate the color is I'm going to take a picture. So I will have a record of the different stages. Well, maybe not all the different stages, but this stage, I'll have a record. And if I quote unquote mess it up later, that won't matter as much. If I have a picture and I can print the picture out and I can tape it right here and say, this is what it looked like first, next time I'm going to leave it at that stage, or next time I'm going to do something different entirely. Haven't done a lot of these shapes. I think that looks dumb. It's like a little stop sign, little yellow stop sign in the middle of the top there. I'm thinking we should activate these colors and just see what happens. So let's take a moment here to look at our design. I'm going to stop recording just so that I can take a picture and have a record of this. And I will be printing that out and keeping it right here. And then we're going to activate it with water and just see what happens. All right, I am back and ready to play with this color. I have a very simple water brush here. You can use any brush with water, but this is amazing for travel. Make sure, if you're going to do this with me, that you have some paper towel so that if something happens that you don't like, you can lift it with the paper towel. Just always a good practice to have. I'm going to use some paper towel to just manage my water control on the brush, but I'm also going to have this in hand in case something happens that I don't like. So we have to keep in mind a couple of things now that we're activating the color. One is that yellow and purple are opposites on the color wheel. They're complementary colors. They look fantastic together. They create a lot of impact and contrast. They just look fantastic together. But if mixed together, they create brown. So if you're trying to keep your shapes pure, or you're just trying to avoid brown, you might want to keep kind of the purple and the yellow separate. Now I know I've kind of mixed it in, but not very much. I didn't put very much yellow on the purple, almost as if I intuitively knew they would muck each other up. So I kind of kept them a bit separate, and I layered the yellow with green and orange. Now orange, green, and purple, those are tertiary colors. So mixed together, you mix the primaries, red, green, and blue together, and you get those purple, orange, green. So without the yellow, this would be a tertiary color scheme or color, yeah, scheme. So I'm just doing all the yellow first. I am finding this to be incredibly meditative. See how this one overlaps the green? So I'm just letting them mix, it's okay. That's kind of interesting. We'll have a yellow-green shape there. Next up, I think we should do the orange. I think the orange and green, if they mix together too much, they will create a bit of brown. So, and I'm also thinking that if the line is too thin, like up there, realizing this, if the line is really thin, when you activate it, you might lose that outline. And that's okay. I'm not even sure it's important. You know, you could activate all of this so much like that it blurs and you don't have these outline shapes at all anymore. That's an idea. Orange and purple are mixing there. I'm not going to fight it. With the little tiny shapes, you might need a smaller brush. You might also want to work left to right so that your hand isn't smearing things that you've already activated. Now, I don't know, we'll see what happens when I activate the dark purple, but I think that we might want to go back in with more purple, because I'm guessing that the lavender won't really show up. That's what I'm anticipating. And if it doesn't show up at all, we might need to layer more of it in there or more of a different purple. Because right now it's just a bunch of floating stuff and I feel like it'll look a little better with some grounding. So there we got all the orange. This is a very olivey green. Kind of closer to yellow than it is blue. It's successful if you worked in your sketchbook today, so that's your takeaway. But if you don't like the way it looks at the end and you're kind of disappointed or something, it could be you don't love your color scheme. So maybe quickly Google color theory or color combinations and find a combo you like, and then go in and choose your colors for this assignment. So that's just one takeaway. If you hate yours, it could be because you don't like the colors, and that can happen. That's to be expected, especially if we didn't really think it through ahead of time. This green is so pale, it's so subtle. I'm getting a bit sloppy, but I kind of like the fuzzy look. I don't mind it at all. Something you just saw me do up there is create a bit more outline, just so that I could have more color to play with, to activate. Okay, the purple and the green are kind of mixing here, creating a brown. That's okay, I don't mind. What I would like to happen is I would like there to be a definite area like light shadow along this path. So that's something I think I'll be tweaking. Let's activate the dark purple and see what happens. A little bit messy. So I think this color will be just brighter, more vibrant, and easier to see. I'm not using watercolor paper. Let's just put that out there. This is a Moleskine Sketchbook. It's not the flimsiest paper, like for writing in. It is not the watercolor, the heavier one with the texture. This is just the sketchbook paper. I haven't worked in it before, I think ever. I don't think I've ever had a Moleskine sketchbook. I've had Moleskine watercolor sketchbook, Moleskine notebooks, and I've used the notebooks like sketchbooks, and I've used the watercolor sketchbooks like sketchbooks. But yet haven't necessarily tried this weight and quality of paper. And so it's very interesting to see and test out what it will do with water, because I think it's going to work really well for drawing media on the road. And I love that it seems like you're going to be able to add a little bit of, little tiny bit of water media to it without any trouble. Now I know some of the shapes aren't completely outlined. If that bothers you, you can just go in and add it. Be aware that if you're going to draw on the paper that's already wet with one of these colored pencil crayons, they'll be super like thick and bold. It doesn't behave the same way when you use it on dry paper. Be aware of that. We've got some sense of depth. We've got a sense of movement and like real nice flow. I think I'm going to be a little heavier with the purple, the light pale purple that we started with, because I actually want to see it. I don't want it to just act like a sketch. I think I would like to truly see it in the drawing. So hopefully that's what this will do. Notice I'm not like going around every single shape. I don't know if that's necessary. It might be, we'll find out. But I don't think so. Kind of just trying to do this faster. Now I also want to add some dark purple to the shadows on the path. Those would be right here. Not here, that's light. Right here. I'm going to leave the sides orange and purple in the center. I'm going to emphasize the purple right here, just because I want to create more drama in the light and shadow, the pattern of light and shadow. So let's see what that looks like when I bring more purple into these orange areas. I think it looks nice. I think we're working out well. You might want some yellow in here to emphasize the fact that this is not in shadow. We've got light piercing through. So maybe a little bit more yellow in these sections would be good. So now we're getting experimental. Now we're blending, we're literally going over something that was green, and I want it to be a little lighter. So I just lifted it off. That's why I have my paper towel with me all the time, because I put in the yellow, it was just way too dark yellow, and so I had to kind of lift a little bit. That's fine. Let's see what happens when we get all these trees in with a bit of, it's gonna kind of act like gray, I think, like a mid-tone gray. And I'm gonna leave gaps here where the light should be, and then no gaps. Let's work our way up this side. I think we're getting a little bit of bleed from the dark purple, and that's okay. It's gonna help us out. Help me out, dark purple. This is really not very bold. It is so tame. Do we need a darker value, or can we just enjoy it light? Because I do have darker. This is violet. It is dark. Ooh, that might be nice. I know, it's yellow over top of purple. Dun dun dun. What's gonna happen? Make sure your brush is clean because you were using it for purples and then it will be contaminated and really make a mucky mess. So clean your brush before you go back into the yellow. I think it turned out just fine because it was going over top of the pale lavender, which didn't want to do much anyway. Okay, I cannot help myself. I think we need to add some deeper shadow. Deeper still. I'm going to, and keep in mind, I'm like doing this over top of wet paper, or at least damp paper. And so it's going to draw darker. The lines are just going to be heavier. If you don't like that, then pull out a hair dryer and get this all dried off before you move on. The overall effect at the end of this drawing was interesting, but we lacked the drama of value. We only had drama in shape and color, and there was no drama in the value of light and dark, so I'm trying to add some. Tell me what you think. Would you have done this? Or do you think I am nitpicking? Why is it not activating? Do you see this? Maybe it's because I drew it on wet paper. I'm gonna keep going anyway. Whoa, I don't care. Let's add some on this side. This is so super dark in here. I'm maybe being a bit sloppy with my shapes right now. So note to self, take a break if you start getting really sloppy because you might sabotage your drawing. Dark. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. barely activating. And I'm scrubbing over this paper for the second time, so keep in mind if you don't have watercolor paper that this is when it will start to pill. You kind of damaging the paper right now, which I can kind of see happening a little. So next time maybe just count on having one pass and then you're stuck with what you're stuck with. If it annoys you, you could just color it in. Just lightly adding a bit more. Oh, it's kind of textured too. I kind of like that. Look at how textured this is, the marks that I'm making. Ooh, nice. And I was also able to like leave the top of the rock. Very cool. Yep, I don't mind it being textured like that. It looks kind of cool. I think I'm happy with it. What do you think? I would love to see how yours turned out with this kind of exercise. Everyone's will probably be so different. So different, but fun way to start a sketchbook. Hope you enjoyed today. Thanks for joining me for that tutorial. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And maybe you got a couple of other ideas while you were working. If this happened, please take a moment and just jot them down. You might think, oh, I'll totally remember that. but don't rely on your memory. You never know when you need your ideas, and they might come in use later this week. They might come in use 5 years down the road. So take a moment, jot those down in your sketchbook as well. It's okay if nothing comes of them, but always use the inspiration that pops into your mind when working on other things in your sketchbook. Use that, keep that, store that, so that you can return to it. Anyway, I'll see you back here again real soon for another art video.